Hello and welcome. Today we're going to explore why Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most burdened man in the ancient world, embraced the chaos of life not as an enemy, but as a path to peace, and how, through his writings and his example, you can too. You've probably felt it, that uneasy current running just beneath the surface, a mind that won't settle, a body that longs for sleep but a heart that won't surrender to stillness. You reach for your phone, you replay a conversation, you worry about tomorrow. You wonder why, with so many comforts and so much control, you still can't find peace. To an ancient Stoic like Marcus, our modern anxieties might seem strange, not ridiculous, just misplaced. You live in a world obsessed with things he trained himself to release: comfort, image, certainty, praise. And yet here you are, caught in the same storm he was. The human storm. Thought, emotion, uncertainty. The only difference, he found a way through it. So before we go any deeper, take a moment to follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, but only if you genuinely find this content valuable. And feel free to post where in the world you're listening from. It's always good to remember that you're not alone in this. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I invite you to lend an ear for a little while. And let's explore this idea together. It's past midnight in your world. The lights are off, but your thoughts are very much on. You lie still, but your mind replays the day, stitches together mistakes, imagines futures. A future where you say the wrong thing, where you lose something you love, where things never quite come together. Centuries ago, another sleepless figure turned over in his bed, not in a warm house or cozy apartment, but in a war camp. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and though crowned emperor, his reign was a sequence of difficulties: plague, betrayal, military revolt, and family tragedy. And yet, from that chaos, he wrote to himself these words: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." You read it again. You feel its simplicity and its severity, because you want the world to change. You want people to act differently, circumstances to cooperate, time to stretch. You want comfort without cost, progress without pain. But the Stoic path begins when you stop asking the world to make you calm, and instead begin to calm the world inside you. Imagine Marcus in his tent. His army stretched thin, his advisors wary, the distant cry of enemies in the dark. He cannot control the weather, he cannot control fate, but he can hold one boundary: his response. He takes up his journal, not to report the day's events, but to examine his own reactions. Today, he might write, "I was tempted by anger, distracted by praise, disturbed by fear, but none of these were required. They entered because I left the door open." So what doors have you left open tonight? The door to fear. What if I'm not enough? The door to judgment. I shouldn't have said that. The door to control. I must make tomorrow go exactly this way. Close them, one by one, gently, not by force but by perspective. Because sleep, like peace, comes when you stop wrestling with the world. When you stop believing every thought is a command you must obey. When you stop trying to script life and start letting it unfold. There's a practice Marcus embraced: evening reflection. Not to shame himself, but to understand himself. To sit with the events of the day, not to rewrite them, but to see them clearly and say, "That happened, I lived it, and I'm still here." You can do the same. Think back. That thing you regret saying, what was behind it? Fear? Impatience? Habit? Not evil, not failure, just something to observe. You were human, and you still are. The Stoics were not statues, they felt deeply, but they learned not to be ruled by their feelings, to sit beside them like a wise friend and say, "Ah, here you are again, let's talk." Marcus reminds you, chaos doesn't steal your peace, your resistance to it does. That meeting tomorrow, the uncertainty in your relationship, the pressure to perform, none of it has power over you unless you hand it the keys. unless you believe your calm is somewhere out there waiting to be retrieved. It isn't, it's right here, in your breath, in your letting go, in your remembering. If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. That last line, another Marcus quote. Not cold, but clear. Not indifferent, but grounded. He's saying, you've survived everything up to this moment. What makes you think you won't survive the next? And so you settle just a little deeper into the mattress. You allow the body to become heavier. You return from the spiraling thoughts to this single breath. You imagine Marcus writing by candlelight, the sounds of night beyond the canvas wall, the weight of an empire on his shoulders, and still he chooses calm. Because peace, he realized, was not the absence of conflict. It was the presence of clarity. And you can have that too, here now, just by deciding to meet this moment as it is. Not as you wish it to be, not as you fear it might become, but simply as it is. The storm rages, not outside your window, but inside your head. Thoughts whirl like wind, anxiety claps like thunder, and each imagined scenario strikes like lightning. You want to quiet it. You beg for stillness. But the Stoics offer something different. Not escape, not resistance. Instead, they hand you a radical truth. You cannot control the storm. What you can control is how you face it. Marcus Aurelius understood this on a scale most of us never will. The man ruled during a plague that killed millions, during wars that bled the borders of the empire, during betrayals within his own household. He knew chaos not as theory, but as daily, brutal reality. And yet he wrote with no trace of panic, you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. There's a pause after you hear that. Your mind resists. But how can I not be upset? The world isn't cooperating. People are unfair. Things go wrong. Sleep slips away night after night. Yes, and all of that might be true. But Marcus wasn't denying hardship. He was reframing it, reminding himself and now you that the chaos is not in you unless you bring it there. It is outside. The mistake is inviting it inside, rehearsing it, giving it a seat at your table. Imagine your thoughts as visitors knocking on your mental door. Some are loud, some wear fear like perfume. Others carry old regrets or future worries. They plead to be let in. The Stoic response isn't to shout or slam the door, it's to calmly choose. Will this thought serve me tonight? If not, you simply don't open. There's a moment in Marcus's meditations where he reminds himself, external things are not the problem, it's your assessment of them, which you can erase right now. Erase, not suppress, not deny. Erase the judgment. The idea that this moment must be different, that your mind must be quiet, that your life must feel perfectly arranged before you can rest. Chaos isn't a failure of the world, it's a feature of it, a constant. What changes is your relationship to it. Tonight, you practice this principle, the dichotomy of control. It's simple but not easy. You draw a mental line between what's yours and what isn't, between what you influence and what you suffer needlessly trying to dominate. This breath, yours. The weather tomorrow, not yours. How you respond to that critical email, yours. Whether the sender apologizes, not yours. Your effort, your intention, your character, always yours. Everything else, background noise. You let go of the noise, not because it doesn't matter, but because it's not manageable. You've spent too many nights negotiating with shadows, arguing with outcomes that haven't happened yet. Tonight you try something new. You release them. You say like a mantra, what is not mine, I leave alone. And suddenly the chaos shrinks. Not because it's gone, but because you're no longer feeding it. You're no longer playing host to every storm that passes by. Consider Marcus again. The empire is unraveling in parts. There's political unrest, disease. Even his own son, Commodus, is already showing signs of instability. He cannot fix everything. But he does not fall apart. He retreats to his notes, his mind, his practice. Because control is not peace, clarity is. You might think, but my life is small. I'm not an emperor, And that's the point. If Marcus could train his mind in the middle of an empire's crises, you can train yours beneath the blankets of your own bed. It starts by noticing the moment your mind begins to dramatize. A thought enters, what if tomorrow's meeting goes badly? Your instinct is to run with it. Imagine the failure, the judgment, the spiral. But you pause. You ask, is this within my control? If yes, you prepare. If no, you let it drift by like a passing cloud. You realize that most of what keeps you awake isn't real. It's theater. Mental plays cast by fear and dressed as caution. But Marcus reminds you, if it's bearable, bear it. Don't add to it with your own judgments. And so you choose not to. You lie back. You soften your breath. You whisper to yourself, not dramatically, not in desperation, but as a steady act of reclaiming sovereignty. This thought does not serve me. This feeling is not forever. I can let go now, because when you stop trying to wrestle the storm, you realize it's not chasing you. It's just moving. As storms do, as emotions do, as thoughts do. Let them pass. Let them howl and rain. Let the world be what it is. Your job is to be what you are, the stillness inside the swirl, the steady center, the watcher, not the watched. Marcus didn't find peace by fixing everything. He found it by understanding what was his to hold. So tonight you practice the same. You draw your line. You name what's yours. And you leave the rest outside. Not with anger, not with judgment, with peace. You reach for certainty in the dark. The mind clings to what it thinks it owns. Titles, relationships, reputation, even the rhythm of your daily routines. You grip tighter as sleep slips further away. And yet, the tighter you hold, the more fragile it all seems. Marcus Aurelius, writing after the death of his beloved tutor and in the shadow of political betrayal, offers this piercing insight. You are a soul carrying a corpse. A little jarring, perhaps, but that was his point. What you believe is yours, your body, your success, your name, even the people you love, is not truly owned. It is borrowed, temporary, assigned for now, not guaranteed forever. The Stoics called this principle the discipline of desire. Want only what is truly yours, and what's that? Only your character. Only your mind's ability to respond wisely, nothing else. Tonight you look around your inner inventory. You find yourself attached to things beyond your grasp. Will they love me tomorrow? Will I succeed at this new job? Will my health hold? You're not wrong to care. But Stoicism invites a softer, humbler question. What happens when I stop pretending these things are mine to keep? You don't have to stop loving them. Marcus didn't stop loving his children or valuing his responsibilities, but he learned to approach them with gentleness instead of ownership, with open hands instead of clenched fists. That's how you rest tonight, not by removing risk, but by reimagining your relationship to it. You remember the metaphor Epictetus used? Life is like a game of dice. You don't control the roll. You control how you play the result. Trying to own the outcome is like trying to own the wind. You can feel it. You can move with it. But you can never hold it still. So tonight, loosen your grip. You think of the project that didn't go your way, the person who didn't respond how you hoped, the goals still unmet. Are these failures? Or are they simply events, neutral, shifting outside your command? Marcus reminded himself again and again, receive without pride, let go without attachment, because the only real possession is how you meet this moment. Consider this. The richest man in Rome could lose everything overnight. Fire, theft, accusation, and often they did. But a Stoic like Marcus would have already rehearsed the loss, not morbidly but wisely. He practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortune, not to attract pain but to prepare for it. You too can do this gently. You imagine losing that job you've made part of your identity, the promotion that defines your sense of worth, the image of yourself as always competent, always needed. What remains? You, the observer, the learner, the one capable of rebuilding, redirecting, redefining. Because who you are is not what you hold. It's how you hold yourself when things fall away. This brings an odd sense of comfort, doesn't it? That nothing you truly need can be taken. That peace doesn't depend on permanence, but on perspective. You remember how Marcus wrote not to an audience, but to himself. His meditations were never meant for publication. They were reminders, repetition for a restless mind. A way of saying over and over, this is what's real. This is what's mine. This is what I can trust. So tonight you borrow his habit. You speak softly to your own mind. I don't own their opinion of me. I don't own tomorrow's outcomes. I don't even own this body for certain. But I own my next thought. I own my choice to rest. I own the courage to loosen my grip, and in that there is deep freedom. You may still hear the echoes of worry, the list of tasks unfinished, the fear of things slipping out of your control. That's okay, they can echo, but you don't have to answer. Because sleep comes not when you win the day, but when you stop demanding that the day should have gone differently. Let that land for a moment. You are not your bank account. You are not your inbox. You are not the number of likes, the tone of someone's reply, or even the sum of your productivity. You are the awareness behind all of it. Marcus lost his teacher. He lost soldiers in war. He lost his beloved wife. He lost years of his life to political unrest and military tension. But he did not lose himself. Because he never placed himself in those things to begin with. Neither should you. You're free when you choose to define yourself not by what you own, but by how you live. Not by what you achieve, but by the steadiness you bring to your attempts. Not by how long you sleep, but by the way you let go when it's time to. So let go. Let the body soften. Let the mind ease its grasp. Whisper if you like, this is not mine. This moment is, and breathe into that quiet freedom. A small discomfort rises in your chest. Maybe it's the memory of a mistake. Maybe it's the uncertainty of tomorrow's unknowns. The mind sharpens its lens and starts to interpret. Something is wrong. But what if it's not? What if, like Marcus Aurelius, you could retrain the lens itself? Tonight, you lean into one of the core Stoic disciplines, the discipline of perception. It's not about denying what's happening. It's about changing how you see it. The external world hasn't changed. But your interpretation? That is within your command. Marcus faced catastrophe often. One year, the Tiber River overflowed, wiping out crops and bringing famine to Rome. The people panicked. Politicians postured. But in his journals, Marcus didn't curse nature or complain about the gods. He wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way. Let that settle in. What blocks your path becomes the path, not by magic, not by denial, but by your choice to perceive the situation differently, to see in adversity the seed of clarity, growth, or even wisdom. You've had days like that. A plan falls apart. Someone disappoints you. A project crumbles. And at first it feels like failure. But later, if you're honest, it becomes the turning point. You learned. You grew. You saw yourself differently. That's what Marcus practiced daily. When war broke out, not once, but repeatedly, he didn't wish for peace as a condition to begin his work. He adapted. He wrote, "Now is the time to prove your philosophy." So what about you? Tonight you bring your current hardship into view. Not to wallow in it, but to reframe it. The deadline you fear. The silence from someone you care about. The exhaustion of trying to hold it all together. You imagine it as a stone in your path. You can kick it, curse it, try to walk around it endlessly. Or you can step on it, use it, stand taller because of it. Marcus didn't just theorize this, he lived it. As the Antonine Plague ravaged Rome, one of the deadliest pandemics in history, he stayed. He served. He managed logistics. He wrote down his thoughts at night, not for others, but to keep his own clarity intact. This is what you're doing now. You're returning to your center so that no outer turbulence can fully dislodge you. Marcus wrote, The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. You repeat that, not like a slogan, like a grounding truth. You begin to question the assumptions beneath your suffering, that you should be further along, that people should behave differently, that the day should have gone as planned. Should is the root of unnecessary suffering. Stoicism invites you to replace should with is, not to surrender your values, but to see the truth more clearly. This happened, that was said, this is what I face now. And then, what can I do with it? Suddenly, perception becomes a tool, a torch in the night, not a lie to soothe you, but a light to guide you. The challenge? Still there. The pain? Still real. But you're no longer just reacting, you're shaping, interpreting, reclaiming authorship over the story you tell yourself. Marcus reminds you, if you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now. So what judgment do you need to wipe away tonight? That missing someone is weakness? That fear means failure? That rest must be earned through suffering? No. You're allowed to release the pressure, to soften, to shift the lens without losing your strength. Perception is the difference between seeing rain as punishment or invitation, between seeing silence as abandonment or space, between seeing sleeplessness as a curse or a call to reflection. So you lie there, and instead of fighting your wakefulness, you let it reveal something. Maybe how much you've been carrying, maybe how fast your days move, maybe how rare it is to simply be without noise. Even now in this quiet, you are practicing philosophy. Not the abstract kind, but the lived kind. The kind Marcus practiced not from a marble throne, but from muddy camps and candlelit corners. You perceive your situation anew, not to trick yourself, but to empower yourself. You say gently but firmly, "This is hard, but I can choose how I meet it." And now the feeling in your chest loosens. Not because the cause is gone, but because the grip of interpretation has eased. You've chosen to step onto the stone, not avoid it. And with that, something shifts. Your body feels just a little safer. The present moment feels less like a trap and more like a space. You've practiced the discipline of perception. Tomorrow may bring new challenges, but tonight you've reclaimed your lens, and that's everything. The world doesn't stop just because you need rest. Somewhere an inbox is still filling. Somewhere someone is deciding what they think of you. Somewhere an algorithm is measuring your worth in numbers. Life keeps moving, but Marcus Aurelius found stillness, not by slowing the world down, but by planting himself firmly within it. You imagine him now, the emperor, surrounded by urgent matters. A scroll in one hand, a report of uprising in the other. And yet he writes in his journal, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." He knew that external events don't stop, that silence doesn't descend like a gift. You have to create it. You have to choose it, even when everything else pulls you to react, to scroll, to spin, to perform. Tonight you do the same. Your life doesn't need to pause for you to be still. Stillness isn't found in the absence of movement. It's found in the presence of intention. The clarity of choosing what you'll give your energy to and what you'll let pass like wind across water. Marcus practiced the discipline of action, not in the way we usually think, busy, urgent, dramatic, but measured, deliberate, aligned. He didn't seek to do more. He sought to do what was right. No more, no less. You may think of action as external, productivity, achievement, forward motion. But the Stoics knew the most important action often happens inside. The act of choosing peace over panic, of choosing focus over frenzy, of choosing to respond rather than react. Even now, in the dark, as you lie here, this is action. Choosing to pause, choosing to quiet the urge to fix everything before morning. Choosing to notice without judgment the subtle dance of thoughts and sensations. Marcus faced pressure to act every hour of every day. Armies depended on him. Senators questioned him. History would judge him. But in his journals, there's no posturing, no long speeches, just a man trying to stay aligned. He wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This was his compass, simple, clear, uncomplicated. And can you adopt that tonight? You think about your day, the moments when you rushed, when you said yes too quickly, when you felt the itch to prove, to impress, to win. Was it right? Was it true? No shame, just inquiry. That's how stillness begins. Not by stopping all motion, but by slowing the automatic, by creating space between stimulus and response. You face a challenge tomorrow, maybe a conversation you're dreading, a decision you're unsure about, a task you're not ready for. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means not doing what's unnecessary. It means not reacting from fear, not posturing for approval, not leaping ahead of yourself in an attempt to control what isn't ready to be resolved. Marcus wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." That source is still here. You haven't lost it, even if your schedule is full, even if your mind is tired, even if your patience is thin. Stillness isn't a personality trait. It's a muscle, a practice, a decision made over and over, especially when it's hardest. So tonight, you don't try to stop the world. You just stop your need to hold it all. You let the emails wait. You let the future drift. You let go of proving your worth through busyness or hyper-preparation. And in that release, you find what Marcus found, an unshakable core. You breathe a little deeper, not dramatically, just enough to feel it, the space, the quiet under the noise, stillness. It's not passive, it's not lazy, it's power reserved, power aligned, power that doesn't shout to be noticed. You remember a simple truth: movement is easy. Stillness takes strength. So tonight you claim your strength. You don't escape the world, you return to yourself. Not the frantic self chasing reassurance or perfection, but the quiet self. The self that trusts, that observes, that chooses. You lie still, but you are not stuck. You are free. Fear creeps in with the stillness. It tiptoes through the silence, disguising itself as preparation, as planning, as realism. But you know what it really is. A ghost, a phantom guest slipping through the cracks of your thoughts. And tonight you learn, as Marcus Aurelius did, that fear is not to be obeyed, it is to be understood. The Stoics knew fear intimately, not the abstract kind, but the kind that lives in the body. The kind that breathes faster, shortens sleep, and hijacks focus. Marcus faced it during war councils, amidst political betrayal and in the face of epidemics. But he never claimed to be fearless. He simply learned not to be ruled by fear. He wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." Think about that. It's not loss or failure that steals your peace. It's the way fear blocks you from showing up at all. It tricks you into rehearsing pain that hasn't happened, into avoiding risks that might free you, into staying small because growth feels uncertain. Fear is imaginative, it creates stories, and you, being human, are susceptible to the theater. What if they leave? What if I fail? What if I can't handle it? But tonight you separate truth from tale. You remember that Stoicism doesn't ask you to crush fear. It asks you to sit beside it, to look at it, to name it, and to ask, is this helping me act in accordance with my values? Most times the answer is no. Marcus saw fear as a failure of perception, a confusion between what might happen and what is actually happening. He trained himself to return to the present, not the imagined future, but the actual now. You do the same. You bring your attention back to this room, this bed, this breath. Right now you are safe. Right now you are held. Right now nothing is demanded of you but rest. You begin to see fear for what it is. A projection, a well-meaning but misinformed advisor, not your enemy but also not your commander. The Stoics made peace with fear by practicing voluntary discomfort. They would walk in the cold, fast for a day, sleep without luxury, just to prove to themselves that they could endure more than they feared. You don't need to make yourself uncomfortable tonight, but you can remind yourself discomfort is survivable. Uncertainty is navigable. Fear is endurable. You whisper like Marcus might have, "If it is natural, I will endure it. If it is not, it will pass." Because everything does. And if you examine your fear closely, beneath the surface anxiety, you often find something else. Care. Love. A desire for safety. A desire to do well. Fear is not weakness, it's misplaced care. And the Stoics never told you to stop caring. They told you to care wisely, to anchor your concern in what you can affect, and to release what lies beyond your reach. So you name your fears tonight, one by one. I fear not being good enough, but you are not defined by outcomes, only by your effort. I fear rejection, but you are not responsible for others' perceptions, only for your integrity. I fear the unknown, but the unknown has always been the path of growth. As you speak these fears into the open, they lose some of their shape. They shrink in the light, not because they're gone, but because you've stopped letting them hide in the corners. Marcus taught that fear, like pain, is information, not instruction. Just because you feel afraid doesn't mean you shouldn't move forward. Just because you feel anxious doesn't mean danger is near. Your body is trying to protect you, but your mind can choose a wiser response. You say, "I hear you, and I choose to act anyway." Because fear doesn't define character. Courage does. And courage, in Stoic terms, is not the absence of fear. It is right action despite fear. You begin to see how fear has shaped your days. The messages you didn't send, the words you swallowed, the leaps you hesitated to take. And yet here you are, still standing, still capable. Fear tried to stop you, but it never succeeded. You survived the disappointments. You endured the awkwardness. You kept going. That's Stoicism in action. Not pretending to be unbothered, but continuing forward with your principles intact. So tonight, you don't ask fear to leave. You just ask it to step aside. You make space for peace. Not by eliminating uncertainty, but by refusing to make it your ruler. You lie back. You let your body grow heavier. You name your fears, and then you release them like dandelion seeds. You say, "I am not what I fear. I am what I choose." And that choice is calm. That choice is clarity. That choice is now. You lie there, awake but calmer now. The thoughts still come, but they no longer pull you under. You've practiced control over perception, and you've sat beside fear without letting it drive. Now you shift into the quietest of Stoic disciplines, the one Marcus leaned on most when sleep evaded him. Present acceptance. It sounds simple, it isn't. Your mind is a wanderer. It spins forward into what-ifs. It spirals back into could-haves. But the Stoics trained themselves to do something radical, to accept this moment completely as it is. Not after it's fixed, not once it's polished or understood. Now, Marcus Aurelius, writing in the raw middle of his responsibilities, says, "Confine yourself to the present." This isn't a dismissal of the past. It isn't ignorance of the future. It's focus. It's the ability to plant yourself in the ground beneath your feet and say, "Here is where I live. This moment is where I act. This breath is all I truly possess." You feel that now. You're not required to fix the past before you rest. You're not required to anticipate every possible outcome before you're allowed peace. That's a myth. The Stoics knew it. So tonight you soften into this discipline of presence. You allow yourself to observe what is, not what should be. The hum of silence, the warmth beneath your blanket, the slight ache in your shoulders, the gentle flicker of your breath. All of it acceptable. Enough. Marcus lived this practice. On nights when sleep would not come, he did not rage against his mind. He wrote his thoughts down, then he let them go. He didn't wait for the perfect mood or the ideal setting. He met the moment as it came. You can do the same. You say, "This is what I feel." You say, "This is what I face." You say, "This is what I have," and it is enough for now. Think of the Stoic concept of amor fati, the love of fate. Not just resignation, not just acceptance, love. To say, "I welcome this moment, not because it's easy, but because it's mine." That meeting that didn't go well, it happened. That person who misunderstood you, they did. That uncertainty ahead, it exists, but none of it is out of place. Marcus knew that nature doesn't make mistakes, that what happens was always going to happen. And your task as a thinking being is not to judge, but to engage, to respond with character, and then to release. You lie there and practice this. Each breath, a decision to return, to stop chasing the next thought, to stop rewriting the past, to inhabit now fully. You don't need to understand the whole picture. You only need to carry this piece. You don't need to solve the problem tonight. You only need to rest with the knowledge that you'll meet it again tomorrow, with a clearer mind, a steadier heart. This is how Marcus lived through chaos without being swallowed by it, by releasing the demand that life be something other than what it was, by finding peace not in the absence of trouble but in the presence of self-command. You hear a noise in the distance, maybe a car outside, maybe a creak in the wall. You notice it, you let it pass. You don't fight the present, you join it. Because when you do, your energy returns, your clarity sharpens, your fear dissolves, and you remember the present is never unbearable. Only the stories we layer on top make it seem so. Right now, there's no disaster, no emergency, just this inhale, just this exhale, just this quiet practice of presence. Marcus called it the art of living, not just surviving, but dwelling in reality with open eyes and an open heart. You're doing it now. And yes, your mind might wander again. It's allowed. The practice isn't perfection, it's return. You notice the thought, you smile at it, you say not now, and you return. To this breath, to this moment, to this version of yourself that asks for nothing but peace. You don't have to earn it. You only have to allow it. The Stoics didn't wait for rest to be delivered. They cultivated it. Within. Through repetition, through attention, through the soft art of presence. So you soften even further now. You let your limbs grow heavier. You release the tension in your face. You close the loop of thought, not by solving, but by staying. This moment is yours, and it's all you ever need. You are alone, but not really. Even in silence, your thoughts speak. They speak when no one else does. They echo long after the noise of the day fades, and that voice, that inner companion, it matters more than you think. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by flatterers and advisors, understood that the most influential voice in his life was his own. The one that whispered in quiet moments, that shaped his self-concept, that judged his worth, that guided his choices. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And so tonight you consider, what color are your thoughts? What kind of company are you keeping within your own mind? Because even here in the quiet, you are never truly alone. Your inner dialogue is always present, either pulling you into regret or gently anchoring you in wisdom. Marcus chose his company carefully, not just his friends, but his inner counsel. He trained his mind to be a mentor, not a critic, a source of steadiness, not self-sabotage. You can do the same. You listen now without judgment to what your mind says in the quiet. Does it accuse? Does it rehearse old shame? Does it measure your worth against impossible standards? Or does it soothe, reflect, encourage you to live better tomorrow without punishing you for today? This is the practice, to shape your inner dialogue like a sculptor, carefully, with intention, with patience. You hear the self-talk that says, "I didn't do enough today." Pause. Question it. According to whose measure? What did I value today? How did I try? You hear, "I messed up that conversation," and you respond, "Yes. And now I know more. Next time I'll meet it differently." You hear, "I'm behind." And gently you counter, "There is no race, there is only now." This is not delusion. It's not blind positivity. It's a kind of discipline, a refusal to let untrained thoughts run your life. Marcus practiced this rigorously. His journals weren't performances. They were tuning sessions. He would catch his own ego mid-thought. He'd call himself out, not to shame, but to adjust, to refine. He would write, "Don't waste the rest of your time here worrying about other people. It keeps you from doing anything useful." You notice how much of your inner voice is shaped by imagined audiences, what they might think, what they might say, what they might assume. Let that go. Tonight your audience is one, your deeper self, the one that watches, the one that wants peace, the one that already knows what truly matters. And when you listen to that voice, something subtle shifts. The criticism softens, the noise recedes, the judgments lose volume. You become slowly your own refuge, because external validation is unstable. People change, circumstances wobble, but your mind, that's yours to cultivate. It's not about never feeling doubt. Marcus felt it, often, but he trained the second voice, the wiser one, to speak up when the first voice faltered. You can do this now. You don't have to believe every thought that appears. You don't have to obey every mental habit. You begin to shape the conversation. When the voice says you're weak for needing rest, you respond no. Rest is part of strength. When it says you failed today, you say I learned, and tomorrow I act with more clarity. When it says they don't respect you, you answer that is their journey. I remain rooted in mine. Marcus often reminded himself to be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. But strict didn't mean cruel, it meant principled. It meant consistent. It meant refusing to indulge the parts of the mind that seek drama over wisdom. Tonight, your inner company becomes more thoughtful, more supportive, still honest, still clear, but not unkind. You are not at war with yourself. You are guiding yourself, coaching yourself, returning yourself to truth. And what is that truth? That you are not your worst thoughts. You are not your fears. You are not the sum of today's productivity. You are the one who notices and then decides. This inner voice, once shaped, becomes a sanctuary, a place to return to when the world spins, a soft, firm reminder of what matters. That integrity counts more than outcomes. That effort is more valuable than perfection. That peace is not a gift, it's a practice. So tonight you practice. You lie still, you soften your thoughts. You give that inner voice a new tone, not one of panic or punishment, but of presence. You speak inside, I am enough for tonight. I can begin again tomorrow. I can rest now, not because everything is finished, but because I am safe in this moment. That's the kind of company worth keeping. And you'll find over time that voice grows stronger, more consistent, more immediate, until eventually it becomes your first instinct, not your afterthought. Just like it was for Marcus. You consider now the thing we rarely face directly, death. It lingers beneath so many of our thoughts. The fear of running out of time, the urgency to make everything count, the deep pressure to get it right. But what if death, instead of being a source of anxiety, could become your teacher? Marcus Aurelius thought so. He wrote often of mortality, not to darken his spirit, but to lighten his grip on what doesn't matter. Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. There's no panic in his tone, no dread, just clarity. Because to the Stoics, death is not the opposite of life. It is its boundary, its frame. The thing that gives life shape, meaning, urgency. So you reflect now, not with fear, but with calm honesty. You will die. We all will. And in facing that, you begin to strip away the things that don't matter. The imagined judgments, the endless comparisons, the pressure to perform, the worry that you haven't done enough. None of that will follow you. Marcus reminded himself, soon you will have forgotten all things. Soon all things will have forgotten you. At first this may sound bleak, but listen closer. There's freedom in it. You're released from the need to be remembered, to be perfect, to be admired eternally. You're allowed instead to live, not someday, now, not if everything goes right, but even when things don't. This practice, memento mori, remember that you must die, isn't about morbidity. It's about urgency and alignment, about waking up to the reality that each day could be your last and therefore should not be wasted. Even this night, this moment, this hour of rest, this too is part of life. So you let go of the idea that sleep must be earned through exhaustion, that rest must be justified, that every hour must be productive. You are alive now, and that's enough. Marcus did not dwell on death with despair. He used it to remind himself of what he could control, how he treated others, how he responded to events, how he conducted himself day to day. He often spoke of returning to nature's cycle. Life, decay, death, renewal. It's all part of one great turning. Just as the leaf falls, just as the river flows, you too are part of something larger. Death is not the interruption of life. It's the completion, so you soften your fear of endings. You recognize how often they give things meaning. The final day of a trip makes each moment richer. The end of a book makes the story whole. The last words of a conversation, when spoken with love, carry lasting weight. You begin to wonder, what would I do differently if I remembered I might not wake up tomorrow? You wouldn't panic. You wouldn't abandon responsibility, but you'd probably let more go. You'd probably speak more kindly. You'd probably choose peace faster. And that's the point. To remember death is to remember life. To sleep knowing this could be your last night is not terrifying, it's clarifying. You don't waste time rehearsing pain. You don't carry the day's grudges. You don't spin in what-ifs. You come back to now. You release. You remember what Epictetus, another Stoic guide, advised. Let death and exile and all other things which appear terrible be daily before your eyes, and you will never have a mean thought, nor will you covet anything excessively. So what are you coveting tonight? Control, approval, more time? Let it go. You don't have to grip so tightly. You don't have to make every moment immortal. You just have to show up with presence, with principle, and with peace. Death isn't the enemy. Forgetting that death is real, that's the danger. You lie back now and release your day. The things unsaid, the mistakes made, the things undone. You release them not because they don't matter, but because tonight they are done. You are here. You are breathing. And that's enough. You reflect, maybe with a half smile. If tonight were my last, would I want my final act to be worry or rest? And you choose rest. You choose to practice what Marcus practiced, the art of being mortal with grace. You are not immortal, but you are eternal in this moment, present, alive, capable of choice. So you soften your limbs. You exhale with intention. You say to yourself, I have lived today. I will live again tomorrow, and if I don't, I have lived enough. And with that, peace becomes possible. You turn toward the window, or perhaps just inward, and imagine the night sky above you. Even if you can't see the stars, you know they're there. Silent, indifferent, eternal. Marcus Aurelius often found comfort in the stars, not in their mystery, but in their rhythm, the turning of nature, the seasons, the endless cycles that repeat regardless of human drama. He wrote, "Observe how all things are continually being born of change. Nature loves nothing so much as to change existing things and to make new ones like them." Tonight you reconnect with that rhythm, because while your mind may be racing, worried, projecting, grasping, your body belongs to nature. And nature knows how to rest, how to let go, how to follow the cycle, not resist it. You feel the tension you've carried all day. It sits in your shoulders, in your jaw, in your chest. You've tried to outrun exhaustion with mental noise, but now you realize the body doesn't need convincing. It knows when it's time to return. Return to stillness, return to simplicity. Return to the rhythm that existed long before your calendar or your clock. Marcus lived during a time of constant upheaval. But when he felt overwhelmed, he would write about rivers flowing, trees bending with the wind, animals rising with the sun and sleeping with the dusk. He didn't envy their ignorance. He admired their alignment. He saw that peace wasn't the absence of movement. It was moving with nature, not against it. So you practice that now. You listen to your breath, not to control it, but to follow it. Inhale, exhale, no rush, no agenda. Just the rhythm of your own body returning to what it always knew. You notice the quiet between sounds, the pause between thoughts, the space between stimulus and response, and you allow that space to widen. Because modern life has forgotten the pace of nature. The digital world is always awake, always reacting, always refreshing. But your soul isn't made for constant acceleration. It's made to pause, to reflect, to return. Marcus found his clarity not in the speed of Rome's politics, but in his morning walks, his silent reflection, his nightly journaling. He returned again and again to the natural world, not to escape responsibility, but to gain perspective. When crops failed, he didn't curse the earth. He remembered, everything changes. When storms came, he didn't take it personally. He reminded himself, I too am nature. I too must bend. I too must change. So tonight you bend with what is. You stop demanding progress. You stop measuring your worth by output. You remember that trees do not grow in straight lines. Rivers do not rush endlessly forward. Seasons don't apologize for their slower moments. And neither should you. You may feel tired of always pushing, of always being on, of always striving to be a little more productive, a little more impressive. So you stop, not forever, just tonight. You align with the deeper rhythm. That rhythm says now is the time for stillness. That rhythm says there is no rush to become more than you are. That rhythm says you are part of nature, and nature is not in crisis. You soften even more now. You let your limbs grow heavy. You imagine roots extending into the earth beneath you, firm, grounded, unhurried. You are not separate from nature. You are not above it. You are it. The Stoics believed that remembering this made us stronger, not weaker, not passive, but deeply anchored. Resilient because we are connected, humble because we are temporary, peaceful because we are part of something greater than ourselves. Marcus reminded himself often, adapt yourself to the life you have been given, and truly love the people with whom destiny has surrounded you. Adapt, not control, adapt. So you adapt now to this moment, to this breath, to the gentle call to rest. You don't force sleep, you invite it. You don't command the body, you listen to it. You don't conquer the night, you join it. The world will turn without your input. The stars will shine, the earth will rotate, life will continue. And you can rest, not because everything is finished, not because everything is understood, but because nature never asks for more than now. So you release your plans, you release your pace, you return to rhythm. And the rhythm carries you gently toward peace. You wake up each morning and feel the hum of urgency beneath your skin, the pressure to get ahead, to optimize, to grow, achieve, expand. It's almost sacred in the modern world, this worship of progress. But Marcus Aurelius reminds you, not all progress is meaningful, not all movement is wise. He writes, ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. Tonight you untie the knot, because ambition, left unexamined, becomes a leash. It pulls you forward with promises it never quite fulfills. Once I reach that goal, then I'll rest. Once I get their approval, then I'll feel secure. Once I hit the next milestone, then I'll finally be at peace. But Stoicism whispers something quieter and truer. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to be still. You are allowed to measure your life not in milestones, but in moments of alignment. Marcus could have chased glory endlessly. He could have indulged in conquest, flattery, vanity. Instead, he used his power to pursue wisdom. He wrote not of his accomplishments, but of his character. Not of what he had gained, but how he had grown. He didn't scorn progress, but he questioned its purpose. And so do you here tonight. You ask, am I chasing something because it's mine to pursue or because I fear falling behind? The Stoics would call this apatheia, not indifference, but detachment from the noise, from the craving, from the myth that more is always better. They weren't against effort, they were against confusion. Confusing movement for meaning, confusing applause for virtue, confusing ambition for peace. And when you lie awake, your mind often spins in the gears of false progress. The unchecked to-do list, the person you haven't impressed, the imagined scoreboard where your worth is tallied in achievements. But tonight, you let go of the scoreboard. You let go of the timeline. You let go of the belief that fulfillment lies just over the next hill. Marcus wrote, Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself and your way of thinking. So you bring the question home. What is enough? Not in some future version of your life. Right now. Is this breath enough? Is this soft bed enough? Is the effort you made today, however imperfect, enough? What if you stopped chasing and started returning? Returning to your values. Returning to what you control. Returning to the kind of person you want to be rather than the kind of person others expect to see. Progress without purpose is just movement. But Marcus lived with a different rhythm. He did not sprint toward legacy. He walked with intention. He stayed close to what he believed was good, reason, kindness, justice, truth. And you too can walk that path. Not in grand gestures, but in quiet choices. You show up, you act from principle, you rest, not as escape, but as alignment. Tonight you release the myth of endless forward motion. You say, I do not need to keep running. I need to keep returning to what matters, to who I am, to what is real. You stop measuring yourself against the projections of others. You stop negotiating with insecurity. You return to simplicity. You don't need more time. You need more presence. You don't need more validation. You need more clarity. Marcus lived in a palace but practiced restraint. He had access to power but clung to humility. He knew that a throne doesn't secure peace, only wisdom does. So tonight you sit beside that same wisdom, quiet, grounded, real. You say, I don't need to be remarkable, I need to be real. And in doing so, you return to a deeper kind of progress, the kind that moves slowly but truly, the kind that brings you home, not to applause, but to peace. You feel the weight of false ambition begin to lift. You let your body sink deeper into the mattress. You allow this moment, not your potential, not your performance, to be enough. And it is. You remember how often life feels like a wall. Something gets in your way. A plan collapses, a goal delays, a person disappoints. And your instinct is to recoil, to tense up, to label it as failure. But the Stoics, and Marcus Aurelius especially, saw it differently. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Not poetic optimism, practical wisdom. Tonight you bring that wisdom to your own obstacle, whatever it is that feels like it's in the way right now. Something unfinished, something unresolved, something painful. You don't have to name it aloud. You feel it in your chest, your thoughts, your resistance to this moment. And then you ask, what if this is not the enemy? What if this is the entrance? The Stoics trained for this mental shift. They believed obstacles are not to be removed before you find peace. They are the training ground for peace. Marcus didn't write those words in comfort. He wrote them amidst war, disease, the chaos of leadership, the unreliability of those closest to him. He had every reason to see his path as blocked. But instead, he leaned in. He practiced amor fati, the love of fate. Not just acceptance, but a deep appreciation of the obstacle as something essential. You feel this in your own life. That person who tested your patience. They taught you boundaries. That failure that stung, it deepened your resilience. That delay that frustrated you, it opened space for something else to grow. The wall wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new direction. And that's what you remember tonight. That your challenges, even the small, stubborn ones that keep you from sleep, are not detours. They are the path. You think about that problem you wish would disappear, the one your mind keeps poking at. What if you stopped asking, why is this happening to me, and started asking, what is this teaching me? That shift rewires everything. You realize pain brings perspective, friction brings focus, resistance brings refinement. You don't have to enjoy it, but you can use it. Marcus said, dig within. There lies the wellspring of good, and it is always ready to bubble up if you just dig. Obstacles force you to dig, beneath ego, beneath expectation, beneath comfort. And when you do, you often discover strength you forgot you had. Patience that had never been called on. Creativity that wasn't needed until now. You're not just enduring this difficulty, you're being shaped by it. So tonight you soften your stance toward the thing that seems to be in your way. You stop treating it as an intruder. You greet it like a teacher. You say, I don't like this, but I can learn from it. You say, this isn't what I asked for, but it might be exactly what I need. That's not giving up, that's stepping up. Because this obstacle, whatever form it takes, is not the end of the story. It is the tension point that strengthens the arc. It is the resistance that sharpens your resolve. You imagine Marcus again, riding in the cold of a military tent, his body tired, his spirit heavy. And yet, he writes with calm. He reminds himself and you that it's not the obstacle that defines your path, it's how you meet it. You let those words sink in. What stands in the way becomes the way. You don't have to fix it tonight. You don't have to figure it all out. You just have to decide, I won't avoid this, I will work with it. Even now, as you lie still, that is a kind of action. The quietest, most powerful kind. Because every time you meet difficulty with clarity, presence, and acceptance, you build something within. Not defenses, not walls, but depth. So you thank this moment, however imperfect. You thank this delay, this discomfort, this detour. You say, you are not in my way, you are my way. And with that, peace returns, not as permission, but as practice. You've learned the Stoic art of moving forward through, not around, of growing not despite the obstacle, but because of it. And now, you rest. Not because the path is smooth, but because your footing is sure. You've been told your whole life that more is better. More success, more progress, more affirmation, more control. But the Stoics knew a deeper truth, a quieter one. Marcus Aurelius writes, if you seek tranquility, do less, or more accurately, do what's essential, which brings a double satisfaction to do less, better. Tonight, you let that wisdom settle. You let it wash over the mental lists, the unfinished emails, the looped internal debates. Because peace doesn't come when everything is done. It comes when you realize not everything needs doing. This is the Stoic practice of enough. Not scarcity, not resignation, but a decision, conscious and grounded, that what you have, what you are, what you did today is enough. You reflect now on what you've been chasing, perhaps without even noticing. The endless need to improve, to optimize, to upgrade. You reach, until you forget what resting even feels like. But the Stoics remind you, the good life isn't about accumulating, it's about shedding, releasing, simplifying. Marcus had everything Rome could offer, wealth, power, legacy. But he still warned against excess. He trained himself to live simply, to want little, to let go of anything that clouded his inner clarity. Because too much isn't just distracting. It's heavy, it weighs on your mind, your time, your peace. So you ask yourself now in the dark, what can I set down? Not forever, not because you failed, but because it's safe to rest. It's okay to say this is enough for now. You don't need another proof of your worth tonight. You don't need to replay every moment of the day. You don't need to worry if you're doing life right. You've done what you could. You've arrived here. That is enough. Seneca, a fellow Stoic, wrote, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. You hear that? You feel it, and suddenly something inside loosens. You think about the moments today that made you feel small, the things you didn't finish, the ways you didn't show up perfectly, and then you let them be. You let them belong to the past, because perfection is not required for peace. Completion is not a prerequisite for rest. Enough is always closer than you think. You remember now what really matters. A few sincere actions, a few quiet values, a steady return to presence. That's all the Stoics aimed for. Marcus never boasted of his deeds. He questioned his motives. He trimmed away what didn't serve his soul. He simplified not because he lacked options, but because he prized clarity. So tonight, you simplify too. You let go of proving. You let go of striving. You breathe in. You breathe out. You ask, what would it feel like if I stopped measuring? And in the space that follows, you feel your body begin to soften. Your jaw unclenches, your shoulders sink. The tight grip around your expectations loosens. You no longer need to tally the day. You no longer need to evaluate your worth, because enough is not a destination, it is a practice of recognizing the fullness of a single breath, the wholeness of this exact moment. the quiet beauty of being here without needing anything else added. You whisper now to yourself, I have enough, I am enough, this moment is enough. Not as a trick, not as a performance, but as a truth you've always known, just temporarily forgotten. Marcus didn't chase praise, he didn't seek applause, he sought integrity. And you feel that now, within yourself. That subtle alignment when you stop chasing and start being. There's a calm that comes, not from conquering the world, but from realizing you don't have to. There's a richness that comes not from owning more, but from needing less. There's a freedom that comes when you say softly, enough, and mean it. You rest not in scarcity, but in sufficiency. You lie back, not as someone with loose ends, but as someone who trusts in the fullness of this pause. You don't need the next thing. You need this breath, this moment, this deep exhaling return to self. And in that return, you sleep. You think of everything you're carrying, the decisions, the pressure, the roles you play. Each one adds a layer to the weight pressing on your mind. You've been told to be strong, to be productive, to be in control. But Marcus Aurelius offers a gentler kind of power, the sovereignty of the willing mind. He wrote, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. The obstacle becomes the way. But how? By practicing volition. By exercising the one thing no one can ever take from you, your power to choose your response. Tonight you feel that power, not in some grand decision, but in the quiet decision to meet the moment, to let go of resistance, to say, I will not be ruled by things I cannot command. Your circumstances may feel overwhelming, work, health, relationships, uncertainty, but none of those define you. What defines you is what Marcus clung to in war, through loss and in the solitude of his thoughts, the ability to act from principle regardless of chaos. Your will, steady, present, and calm, is what frees you. The Stoics didn't claim freedom through politics or possessions. They found it in their interior space, a kind of mental citadel fortified not by arrogance but by clarity. You picture Marcus again, the emperor, the philosopher, a man exhausted by duty, aware of death, facing pressure from every side, and yet composed, because he knew you have power over your mind, not outside events. That's where his strength lived, not in legions, in alignment. And yours lives there too. You start to see the difference between force and will. Force is reactive, tense, rigid. Will is grounded, flexible, quietly unshakable. Force tries to control the world. Will controls your inner life, your choices, your breath. Even now, as you lie still, you are practicing will. You are choosing to stay, to not indulge the spiral, to soften even in the face of what you can't predict. This isn't surrender, it's sovereignty. You recognize the burden is lighter when you stop fighting what is and instead focus on how you show up. The job might still be difficult, the person may still be difficult, but your posture, calm, attentive, intentional, changes everything. The Stoics trained for this. They didn't expect life to cooperate. They expected their minds to rise to meet life as it was. You do the same tonight. You say, I can't control the outcome, but I can bring calm into it. I can't control others, but I can control whether I act with integrity. I can't escape difficulty, but I can stop running from it. Because the willing mind is not passive, it's prepared to feel what's true without being consumed, prepared to act with clarity, not just instinct, prepared to move forward not with certainty, but with conviction. You pause here and let that truth settle in your body. Feel it in your chest, the loosening, the release of false responsibility, the return to what's truly yours, this breath, this response, this moment. You whisper, if only in thought, I do not need the world to be calm for me to be calm. And so you are, still, present, ready, even for the things you cannot predict. Marcus reminds you that no one can steal your peace unless you allow it. No one can dislodge your sense of purpose unless you've forgotten it. And if you have, that's okay. You remember now. The willing mind doesn't mean always knowing the way. It means trusting yourself to meet whatever comes. With grace, with composure, with strength that doesn't shout but endures. And so you breathe deeper, not to push anything away, but to allow yourself the space to respond differently. To be still without being passive, to be soft without being weak, to be clear without being cold. This is how Marcus moved through storms, not by denying them, by facing them fully with an inner stillness shaped by reflection, strengthened by discipline, and softened by wisdom. You feel that stillness in yourself now. Even if tomorrow brings challenges, you will meet them with a willing mind, a steady hand, a quiet strength that no external force can take from you. Because freedom isn't found in the world behaving, it's found in you remembering who you are, no matter what the world brings. You are willing, you are aware, you are ready, and now you rest. You've walked through fire, through fear, through noise, regret, striving, and resistance. And now you've arrived at the edge of it all. Not with everything resolved, but with one simple, powerful truth in your hands. Peace isn't a destination, it's a practice, and it's one Marcus Aurelius returned to. Daily, deliberately, sometimes desperately. Even with the Roman Empire pulling him in every direction, he carved out moments to center himself. He didn't wait for the world to be calm. He became calm in spite of the world. He wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, not upon your luck, not upon your success, not upon the validation of others, but on how you meet each moment, with clarity, with alignment, with principle." Tonight that becomes your practice too. You've explored the pillars of Stoic thought: control, perception, mortality, desire, fear, stillness, and will. And now, you begin to see them not as abstract philosophies, but as steps on a path you walk every day. Sometimes wobbly, sometimes steady, but always towards something inward. Because Stoicism isn't about being emotionless, it's about being emotionally anchored. It's about asking, even in the chaos, what is mine to choose? You practice that now. This breath, yours. This reaction, yours. This soft willingness to let go of what doesn't serve you anymore, all yours. Marcus didn't reach peace and stay there. He returned to it. Over and over, with a journal, with a breath, with a decision not to chase every thought or bow to every fear. And so will you. You don't need to become a sage. You don't need to master every impulse. You simply need to come back to the practice. When the day overwhelms you, return. When doubt creeps in, return. When sleep evades you and the mind spins, return. Not perfectly, but persistently. Because Stoic peace isn't about removal, it's about response. About training yourself to see things as they are without the extra suffering your mind wants to add. You've learned to accept what you can't control rather than fight it. To reframe challenges as teachers, to want less, need less, and find contentment in the simplicity of now. You've learned that your inner voice is yours to shape. That death is not to be feared but remembered, so life can be fully lived. That rest isn't earned through exhaustion, but through alignment. And in all of it, you've returned again and again to one steady principle. Peace is not a place you reach. It's something you practice until it becomes who you are. So you lie here now, not waiting to be rescued from chaos, but resting in your capacity to meet it. You breathe, you soften, you let go, because the practice is working. Even if imperfectly, even if quietly, even if you can't quite feel it yet. It's working. And now, we slow everything down. Let this final stretch be slower, softer. Let your breath lengthen. Let your thoughts drift without anchor. There's nowhere to go now. Nothing left to hold. You've done enough. You've remembered what the Stoics lived and died by. That everything outside of you will change, will shift, will fall away. But what you cultivate within, the stillness, the clarity, the character, that's what stays. Let that stay with you now. Let this quiet not be a break from life, but a deeper return to it. Let your breath remind you that life isn't waiting for some future version of you. It's happening now. In this gentle inhale, in this peaceful exhale. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are in practice. And practice is the path. It is always the path. So rest now. Not as an escape from the day, but as a return to the self that chooses peace, the self that sees clearly, the self that knows. Even if tomorrow is hard, I can meet it. Even if the world is loud, I can be quiet inside it. You've come far. You've come home. Thank you for walking this path tonight. May you rest deeply and rise tomorrow a little lighter.